Here's some things it's good to know when you're watching Under the Skin, the 2013 science fiction horror film from Jonathan Glazer. Under the Skin is a much admired film. In fact, one of the most critically praised genre films of the 21st century for sure. It's one of the few horror films, for example, on the 2022 Sight and Sound list of the greatest films of all time. Another poll by Massive Cinema from 2022 named Under the Skin the greatest British film of the 21st century. And recently, the Roger Ebert website named Under the Skin the seventh best film in all of world cinema in the 2010s. As far as the background of the film is concerned, this is only the third film directed by Jonathan Glazer, who hasn't really worked very much and still has not released another film after this one. Of his first two films, Sexy Beast from 2000 was actually critically praised, whereas his second film, Birth from 2004, met at best mixed critical responses. Under the Skin is based on a 2000 novel of the same title by Michel Faber, a Dutch novelist who actually writes in English. And I think most critics have agreed that while the novel is a little bit easier to understand and it's a little easier to figure out what's going on, the film is definitely a superior work of art. So this is one of those adaptations that contradicts the usual rule that the novel is better than the film. I think most people have agreed that this film is better than the novel. One of the reasons why this film might be better than the novel is just that it has some very striking visuals, which add to the whole atmosphere of strangeness that pervades the film. And this, of course, is something you can't get with a novel because it doesn't have this actual visual dimension that's so important and so striking in this particular film. The film was also made better by extremely effective performance by Scarlett Johansson as the female, the lead role in the film. Puts in a very good acting performance, but was also widely praised simply for the fact of the way she looks in the film. You can see her here on the lower right, a shot from the film. She's either nude or semi-nude a lot in this film. But she looks a little just like a regular person instead of a glamorous movie star in this film. Didn't spend a lot of time toning herself up for the gym, and they certainly in the gym, and they certainly didn't do anything to digitally enhance the way she looks, as opposed to things like her role as the Black Widow in Marvel films, where she looks much more glamorous and fit. Johansson's character, the female, is very, very much the center of this film. And her point of view is clearly the point of view of the whole film. So basically, what we see and what we understand is what she sees and what she understands in the film. One of the things that makes this film particularly interesting, though, is that it's very difficult to fully identify with her as the point of view character, even though in most films we do pretty much identify with the point of view character. That's just kind of the way films typically work. So this inability to really identify with her creates a special kind of cognitive estrangement that keeps viewers off balance as they constantly struggle to sort of figure out exactly what attitude that they should take toward things, because just the way films work, there's a natural inclination to identify with the point of view character, but it's very, very difficult to do in this case, partly because you just can't really understand what she's doing, why she's doing it, and some of the things she does also are very, very difficult to sympathize with, are really impossible to sympathize with. She's, as you'll see in the film. This is, again, I'm trying to avoid spoilers and plot details, because this is a film that you really need to experience, and part of the experience is trying to figure out what's going on as you go through the film. There's a lot of ways in which the film actually cleverly emphasizes the fact that we're seeing things from her point of view. She's in almost every scene of the film, and almost all of the action really centers on her and is presented from her point of view. And the fact that we're seeing things from her point of view is even emphasized several times in the film by extreme close-ups of her eye. They're so close up, in fact, that it creates a kind of defamiliarization effect where her eye looks undeniably strange and alien. Again, this is a film that's difficult to map, you might say, or just to figure out what's going on. Part of the reason for that is that the female herself doesn't always know what's going on. She seems confused much of the time and doesn't seem to fully understand all the things that she encounters in the film, so that we don't understand her motivations, but she doesn't seem to understand other people's motivations or what they're doing either. So seeing things from her point of view is inherently confusing just because she's confused. Moreover, her behavior is really odd, and it's very difficult to understand why she's doing what she's doing, which again makes it very hard to identify with her and her project, or even to tell what her project is. This tone of strangeness is established very early on. The film begins with a segment of over 4 minutes that features tense, discordant music, which is composed by Micah Levy, whose score for the film won a BAFTA nomination for Best Original Music. There's also visuals in this first scene that have a vaguely kind of outer space, science fictional feel to them, without really revealing much in the way of clear meaning. Over the music, meanwhile, we can hear the female's, or Johansson's, we don't know it's the female yet, voice as she practices pronouncing the sounds of various English letters and a few words, as if she's just learning to speak. So it's an opening that announces the film is going to be kind of strange and unusual, but it also announces that the film has very high artistic ambitions. This opening has been compared quite frequently to the overture that begins Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, typically thought of as the science fiction film that demonstrates that this genre can also be very artistic. And finally, the fact that this central character is female, and even called the female, is very important because now we're seeing things from her perspective, which means that unlike the usual male gaze that dominates films, we have a very strongly female gaze in this particular film. As the noted science fiction critic Cheryl Vint points out, quote, "The camera remains static when it frames women who walk in and out of the shots without prompting a reaction. Yet it pans and tracks the men who come into frame, consuming them visually and pushing the viewer to notice that something is off in the gendered relationship to spectacle. Such camera work prompts us to realize how we fail to notice when it is women rather than men captured by the gaze." So this is something you might not even think about as you're watching the film, but pay attention to it because it's very important. And it's, I think, one of the things that makes it, the experience of watching this film, a little bit sort of uneasy and disturbing is the fact that it really is constructed in a way that's different from what we're accustomed to, even though you might not even consciously think of that otherwise as you're watching the film. But anyway, take a look at this film. And as I said, just experience it, go with it. Don't worry if you don't understand everything that's going on at every moment, because that's kind of the way it's supposed to be.